Okay.
You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Let's get it, Jack.
You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, 8 to 10 a.m. Wednesday through Sunday. You can see our Facebook shows on Mac's Sports Facebook page or the Northeast Streaming Sports Network Facebook page with our platforms, whichever way you want to look at it. Also on Twitter and Instagram, like, follow, comment, share, and subscribe when possible. Check out the website on the macandjacksports.com called Mac's Insiders for information on weekly guests, articles, team public relation updates, a list of shows on Northeast Streaming Sports, our great sponsors with links to their products and services. I'm Mac with your co-hosts, the legendary boxing writer Jack Hirsch, who's also a former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, bringing you national sports with special focus on Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, Jack. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Mac. A lot going on in the sport world.
Oh, my God, there is, Jack. And you know, when I look at certain things, and, of course, I follow a lot of different things on social media, on television, and all that stuff. And I see some things, and it actually blows my mind on certain things and certain things people do. Let's get to what really surprised me, and it shouldn't. But here comes the state and the start of the Kyrie Irving project is what I'm calling it, Jack. Head coach Steve Nash didn't know why Kyrie didn't play Thursday, and now Kyrie is not joining the team on the road trip to play the Grizzlies tonight. When Kyrie was asked about this, it was reported he said he just didn't want to play. I mean, what do you do with that as a head coach, Jack? What do you do with that as a Brooklyn Nets fan or the management of the Brooklyn Nets?
Mac, we should really be first thing talking about the big Met blockbuster deal, but that shows you the lightning rod that Kyrie Irving is, that we're starting off with him. Anyone who thinks this is going to be the last of the Kyrie Irving adventures is sadly mistaken. I mean, he was coming to the Nets with baggage already. I mean, he's a player who didn't want to play with LeBron James anymore. Who doesn't want to play with LeBron James? He goes to Boston. Boston thinks he's their ticket perhaps to an NBA title. He disappointed them. He was distant. They had issues. He comes over to the Nets, okay? Right off the bat, when we had all the problems in society and Kyrie Irving was an NBA player rep, one of the people in charge, he told the players not to finish out the NBA season. Of course, Kyrie Irving himself was injured and couldn't finish out the season. So he's giving that advice to others, which would have turned out to be terrible advice. Now with the Nets in the beginning of the year, Steve Nash gets the job and he says, well, we'll all coach the team like it's his decision.
Yeah.
And he just does what Kyrie feels like doing. He criticizes LeBron James again recently by saying with Kevin Durant, he finally has a teammate who could make the big shot beside him. He doesn't mention LeBron by name, but it's
Right.
obvious. Are you kidding me? Kevin Durant's the first teammate you've had who could make a big shot the same way as you can. So when Kyrie Irving's called out on it, he says, well, they just want to match brother against brother. He tries to turn that into a racial issue. But then when LeBron James was asked, he said he was very hurt by what Kyrie Irving said. He was hurt, disappointed. And now he just doesn't feel like reporting to work. I think Kyrie Irving's really got to get counseling, and I mean this in a serious way. Some serious counseling. They have to sit down. They have to address the issue immediately. The different ways of handling situations, Mac. James Harden wants to get traded. James Harden wants out probably in the worst way. But eventually he showed up to the Rockets, and he's falling in line. And we'll see what happens there. But with Kyrie Irving, these adventures are not going to end at any point unless he gets good old-fashioned discipline. And Nets have to put their foot down. They have to let him know they're not going to tolerate this.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Jack. I would suspend him without pay for a couple of weeks. The Nets have a good enough team to win without him. I wouldn't care. You said you don't want to go? Well, good. We're going to help you not go. You can be suspended. You're gone from any activities from the Nets for 2 weeks. You're banned from the locker room, from the stadium. I would come down like a ton of bricks on this guy.
I would.
And that's without pay, too. And I'm going to tell you something else. If you don't like it, we'll trade you tomorrow. Because the Nets have a good enough team, as they showed without Durant last night, beating a good 76ers team by a lot. So to me right now, what the Brooklyn Nets have is a Mercedes that doesn't run right, Jack. It has a Mercedes that's going to have mechanical problems for the next for as long as they own the team. Listen. This is something where the past, the profile of Kyrie Irving. We know what he is. We know what he does. He's proving it again, even with another new team. Man, you got to come down like a hammer, Jack. And I'll tell you right now, if that doesn't straighten him out, get rid of his ass.
Matt, don't sell Kyrie Irving's ability short by saying the Nets would be just as good without him as with him. No, that wouldn't be the case. And to trade Kyrie Irving at this point, because he's a discipline problem, it's going to be very difficult. You're going to get really nickels on the dollar for him. And you don't want to do that. And you would hope Kevin Durant, who's very close with him, would maybe, help straighten him out. But, you get the feeling that Kyrie Irving is the bigger personality on that team than Kevin Durant. You trade Kyrie Irving, you risk upsetting Kevin Durant, but you want to know something? You do it anyway.
Yeah.
You do it anyway. Even if it means the team is going to suffer a bit, you make the best deal possible if you feel this is going to continue. I like your course of action, suspending him a couple of weeks without pay, because you want to know something? When he didn't talk to the media, that's another thing we didn't mention. He just refused to talk to them, and the NBA stepped in and fined him. So then Kyrie Irving said afterwards, well, the media, they're like pawns.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
But if you keep disciplining a guy, he's not going to keep it up. If he wants to get his paycheck, be in the league, he has to fall in line. But you give him too much power, this is what you're going to get. The problem will not disappear unless the Nets discipline him in a firm way. Unless, of course, he somehow has a good reason we don't know about with these two games. Maybe if there's something behind the scenes, okay. But knowing his past history, I'm very skeptical about that.
So let's turn to some great news, Jack, real quick, with a team that rhymes with the team's name, Nets. The Mets. Here comes the owner, Cohen. He signs McCann first, so they upgraded catcher. He makes a big deal for shortstop Lindor. Now Lindor is one of the best shortstops in the league. He's very young.
Easy.
Yes, and
27 years old.
yes, and listen, the Mets have upgraded 2 positions already. Big splash. May make them the favorites if they, in the NL East. I mean, they're really putting together a squad over there, and they already, Jack, had a very solid team.
Mac, I love the deal, but it comes with a small little tag, buyer beware. It's like you go into a department store, Mac. I know, Mac, you like to go to the clearance rack immediately and get the best deals. I know you, Mac. I don't have to talk. You're looking, you see 80% off. Oh, baby, you're thinking. I do the same thing.
Sure.
I check out the clearance rack. First thing, I go in there. You could get some good deals once in a while. You got to look. It's all stacked up together. All the clothes, the shirts, the this, the that. But sometimes you really see something that is really, really good there. And that's Francisco Lindor. What I mean by that, he has only 1 year left on his contract. That's why the Indians traded him.
Sure.
If he had 3 years left on his deal, the Indians wouldn't have made this deal. No way. With
Agreed.
1 year left, he was going to play out his option. They know they couldn't re-sign him. So they did the smart thing. They moved on as much as they hated to. And now it's up to the Mets to re-sign him. Francisco Lindor, he's won 4 Golden Gloves. He's shown a lot of power, surprising power, by, I think, hitting over, he's hit over 30 home runs at least a couple of times. And his glove has been superb in the field. Supposedly, he has a great personality. The Cleveland organization loved him, but he had a bit of an off year last year. You could say, well, it was only a 60-game schedule. If they played 162 games, he would have gotten it going a little more. So that last year, he was a little off. It was a bit of an off year. Is that a trend? Where he's going to be a 258 hitter going forward? You don't know. And then the Mets are going to have to make a decision. If he has a great year this year, they'll want to re-sign him to a long-term deal. If he has a so-so year, is it worth giving him the big bucks? Is he going to turn out to be a staple of the Met organization, or is he going to be a one-year rental? But what people aren't talking about today, which I love about that deal, Carlos Carrasco. They have another starting pitcher for their rotation.
Yeah.
Carlos Carrasco's been average the last couple of years. But in the years before that, for about 3 years before that, he was an elite starting pitcher. So Carlos Carrasco is going to fit into the Mets starting rotation. Does that mean Seth Lugo goes back to the bullpen? I don't know. But considering the owner Steve Cohen got Trevor May already as a middle reliever, James McCann as a catcher, now in the shortstop position. Now Cleveland got back Ahmad Rosario, Mets shortstop, a little better than average.
Right.
Blue chip Met prospect. Never quite turned out to be the player the Mets hoped to be, but he was okay.
Yeah.
Still young, still has some upside, still might develop more. And Andres Jimenez, a second baseman. So Cleveland did get a shortstop and second baseman, respectable players up the middle. And they got, a couple other players I'm not familiar with, a pitcher, Josh Wolf, and an outfielder, Isaiah Green. So it's an intriguing deal. But if you're a Met fan, every reason to be excited. And Mac, as Yankee fans, we got to be bluntly honest. The Mets are on the verge of becoming the number 1 baseball team in New York unless the Yankees strike back. Where's George Steinbrenner when you need him?
Listen, I've been complaining about Cashman and the way they've been, not signing free agents or the people that they're keeping under contract that maybe they ought to think about very seriously at maybe letting go. But listen, I'm glad for the Mets. I'm glad to see that they're making moves like they should. Last year, I thought they would at least win the wild card. They were, it was a crazy season. I thought their team was probably the second best in the NL East. I think for sure they're going to be challenging the Braves this year. There's no doubt about it. So good for the Mets. The Yankees will worry about let the Yankees worry.
Well, let me just say one thing, Mac. Steve Cohen is a lifelong Yankee fan. Now, Hal Steinbrenner wants to keep under the luxury tax. I can't blame an owner for not wanting to lose, a lot of money. I can't blame him. And the Yankees have always shown they're willing to spend, okay,
Yeah.
when push comes to shove. But not to the extent of Steve Cohen. Steve Cohen is the richest owner in sports. He's worth $14 billion, and he grew up a Met fan. He loved
Yeah.
the Mets, and he was a minority owner of the Mets before this. Steve Cohen might be thinking, what's $1 billion to me? So I go down from 14 billion to 13 billion. He's making these aggressive moves, and he's probably not finished. George Springer might be in play. I mean,
Yeah, I would be surprised if they do anything else in the free agency. If they go after Springer, then he wants to win the World Series this year. But I would be surprised, Jack, if all the money they've spent with all the deals they've made, a couple of big deals now, I would be surprised if they're in the running for Springer.
Well, the Yankees didn't do anything. Actually, they did something yesterday.
Right.
Don't laugh at the comparison. They got an outfielder, Greg Allen, from San Diego, a switch hitter. He's been in the big leagues for a few years. Really hasn't done anything significant. But let me say this for Brian Cashman. He picks up guys who you say are insignificant when he picks them up, and they turn into stars on the Yankees, like Luke Voigt. If I told you when he picked up Luke Voigt, you would have rolled your eyes. As I was, big deal. Yeah. Gio Urshela, we would have said big deal. He got a utility player, third baseman. That's what we would have said at the time. I mean, so Brian Cashman has a knack of plucking players out of nowhere and them turning into being really outstanding Yankees.
Well, I wish he would start plucking in the pitching area, Jack. So anyway. The Knicks make some news. They bring back Taj Gibson, one of the coach's favorite players. They waived Omari Spellman. He's been criticized, believe it or not, Jack, for putting a lot on his forwards. Right? We got Randall and we got Barrett and listen, their guard play they've been hurt. They've been very thin. So this is where he's gone, and I don't know why you would criticize a guy for that, because the Knicks have a nice little winning streak going right now. But I think that big man, bringing him in, is if he comes off the bench, he's going to get significant playing time, Jack. And he's got some good stats. I mean, he's not a superstar, but it's something that you need on the bench and to give your players a rest. So I think it was a good pickup for the Knicks, Jack.
Yeah, you mentioned about playing players too much. I don't think with young players it's much of an issue because they bounce back pretty quickly. They're given one day off. It's funny, you look at the box scores of the elite players in the NBA. They're playing 33, 34 minutes out of the 48 minutes per game. And then I laugh. I think back to Wilt Chamberlain. He missed 13 minutes a whole season. He played and that was overtime games, some of them. And listen, you could talk all you want about the modern NBA player being better, but running up and down the court's been the same in the old days and today. You go up and down the court the same way. So I think the players are very carefully monitored, especially early in the season. You know who has issues with their knees, who doesn't. And with all the personal trainers around, I wouldn't criticize Tom Thibodeau for anything like that. Sometimes guys are injury prone no matter how many minutes.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree, Jack. I mean, there's certain people that are injured before the season starts and they kind of heal a little bit, but that injury's still there and they tweak it. I mean, I think Thibodeau's been doing in this shorter span now. Of course, we're not even close to the halfway point yet. But the Knicks
we're very early. I love what Austin Rivers said with that phenomenal 14-point barrage the other night. Bing, 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 4 3-pointers. He said, I've been on bad teams before, and this isn't one of them.
That's
energy with the Knicks. If we were living in normal times, the Garden would be excited. I have to admit, for the first time in a long time, I'm actually looking forward to seeing these guys play. They're
Yeah.
enjoyable to watch, the energy, how they play together. Now, what they need really is a big name player, a player that's truly a force for them to get to the next step. They could scratch and claw, and like you predicted, and I didn't. Maybe they could nab a last playoff spot if they could keep this going, but they would get bumped in the first round probably. They're not championship material by a long shot. The Knicks,
Right.
but the young guys are merging, and you just add one more piece after that. You never know.
Definitely. I mean, and who knows what kind of deals can be made during the season, Jack. And we don't know who will be available. And listen, it's pie in the sky to think the Knicks are going to make a run at anything this year. But to make it to the playoffs, to finish 500, Jack, what a step that would be. So, listen, I'm all on board, and hopefully they continue to play well. There was an interesting article I read, and this has to do with the Houston Texans and Deshaun Watson, who seems to be unhappy, not with the team performance, but who they hired as a GM. And I know, listen, he put in a list supposedly of the people that he thought would make a good GM choice.
He was asked. I believe he was asked. Yeah,
that was the Texans' first mistake.
Yeah.
But anyway, they hired Caserio from the Patriots, who I think is a pretty solid pick. The only thing I could say to Deshaun Watson, if he's listening, which he's probably not, is just shut up and play football. You're not in the NBA. You're on a football team. We don't care, or I don't think the Texans should even care who he wants as a GM. Maybe as a coach, because that's going to directly affect him on who he's, who's coaching him. Maybe, Jack. Probably not, in my opinion. Just shut up and play football and do the best you can. Be a leader on the field. Help your team win. Do your job and be quiet. And stop telling teams who they should hire and who they shouldn't hire. Especially when it doesn't directly involve you. This is a team sport, and whether he likes it or not, maybe he's going to request a trade to be with a GM he likes. I would help him. If I was using Texans, Jack, I would be all over this guy right now. I'm sorry.
Mac, you're coming down way too hard on Deshaun Watson. He didn't do anything wrong at all. He's allowed to voice an opinion. He sent out a tweet that said something to the effect, same old thing, meaning that's the way the Texans do business. The Texans asked him, who he might like to GM. They consulted. He gave them a list, and they ignored his list. Eric Bieniemy was on his list. Eric Bieniemy is Andy Reid's right-hand man with the Kansas City Chiefs, the offensive coordinator. Now, Andy Reid basically calls the plays, but he consults with Eric Bieniemy. Now, supposedly, Deshaun Watson is good buddies with Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes raves about Eric Bieniemy, what a great coach he is,
We're talking GM, Jack.
Offensive coordinator.
We're talking GM. We're not talking about
Right, but the GM, no, but the point is, their new GM, it wasn't interviewing Eric Bieniemy. That's why he's upset that Eric Bieniemy didn't even get an interview as his head coach.
They just named him as the GM. How do we know he didn't interview him? He just got the job, Jack. What is that? I don't even know what you're saying. Caserio just got hired. How is he interviewing anybody? So I would understand Watson being upset if they didn't hire a head coach that he might have thought would be a good head coach. The GM has nothing to do with him, Jack. The GM is responsible for helping the draft, is responsible for recruiting some players, maybe doing free agents. It has nothing to do with that. Now, when he goes to select a head coach, that's a different story. Or
but Deshaun Watson did not ask to be traded. He didn't make any trade.
I think he's unhappy. Maybe they should trade him. I don't know. Listen, the players in the NFL are not players in the NBA, Jack. They you see what happened right now with Brooklyn Nets, right? You see what's happening over there. Steve Nash comes in. I don't know if they're upset about it. I don't know what it is. They have way too much power. Now we got an NFL team, a quarterback of an NFL team, tweeting out that he's unhappy that who they pick for a GM. What does that have to do with him at all?
Let me tell you something. You're out of your mind if you anyone who trades Deshaun Watson
I-
is out of their mind. If I am the Jets, I get on the phone. I say, I'm going to give you the second overall pick in the draft. Then I'm going to give you my other first rounder, which is number 25. And then I'm going to give you my first rounder next year, one of my first rounders as well. I believe they have 2 next year. I'm going to give them 3 first rounders. At number 2, they can take Justin Fields or whatever. And then they have a couple of other first rounders. And I'm going to throw in like a number 2 and number 3. I'll sweeten the pot with a couple of more picks. I'll go 5 high picks.
Right.
Deshaun Watson.
And you'll have another player just like Adams who's going to be unhappy, complain, and want to get out of the New York Jets. So that would be a great move, Jet. Let's get to the last thing because I could go on for this.
Sam Darnold,
Yeah. You need another player over there that's a problem, Jack. You already saw what happened with Adams.
Deshaun Watson is not a problem player. He made one mistake this year by going to the restaurant with his teammates.
Jack, that's one mistake. Let's get to the last thing so we can bring our guest Byron Williams up, and we do have an underdog pick, which he'll be able to participate with us in. So the UFC fighter, and I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. It looks like Renneria, Jack, was arrested, Irvin, for the attempted premeditated murder of his sisters. What the heck is that?
He's got mental problems. Supposedly, he claimed he was told to do that by a higher power. I mean, it's tragic. Fortunately, his sister survived while they went to bed sleeping. He tried to stab them both. He did. And then he took off. He thought he had killed them, and he notified the police. Fortunately, they both survived.
Okay, cool.
That's great news that they survived. A tragedy for a young man to throw his life away like that. And you wonder whether there were lead-ups that he was that troubled, because sometimes there's signs that we tend to overlook. And that's what worries me. Not to the same extent. Not that Kyrie Irving would ever do anything like that. And I'm not inferring that in the slightest. But with Kyrie's actions, what I said before, coming down with any discipline, you look into counseling for anyone who shows a pattern, okay? You look into counseling first, and, very sad.
Yeah, so it caught my eye. So, Jack, backstage right now, we have our NFL analyst, Byron Williams. He's played for a number of NFL teams, most notably the Giants and the Eagles. He was with the WFL, the CFL, wide receiver, in 3 different leagues, led the WFL with touchdowns one year. He's very knowledgeable. We have him in because he was a player in the NFL and because he's so good at what he does. So let's bring Byron up right now. How you doing today, Byron?
Hey, good morning. How you guys doing?
No, I just thought of something with Mac's introduction. Did you ever play arena football?
No, I never played.
That looked intense. I once caught a game. I mean, that's scary from close quarters, catching a pass and then getting knocked into the boards. I don't think I would have liked that if I were a player.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of guys. In fact, Brown Daddy played in the arena football, but there's a lot of guys played the arena football that really liked it. They said it was a fun game.
Yeah. So
they didn't have cold weather to deal with.
It's like hockey and football that's put together. Very nice. So Byron, let's talk a little bit about the NFC fallout. I know what's been going on and on all week, and I want your perspective, and it's going to be unique because everybody I talk to are mainly commentators or fans, and even with the major networks, people are arguing about this. But you were a player, and when you played in football, and you played in some years that the Giants weren't that good. I mean, especially in the beginning when Parcells took over. And it's the last game of the season. You're out of the playoffs, and that you're thinking about next year, of course. But as a player, I would expect, and I could be wrong, that you're in the play to win the game. You always want to win the game, not only for the team, but in case you get traded. I mean, you're going to put tape out there for other teams to look at. So If you were one of the Philadelphia Eagles and your coach pulled out the second string quarterback that ran for 2 touchdowns, admitting his performance wasn't great passing, and you were in the game, even though you had nothing to win except maybe not getting the 6th round pick, getting the 9th round draft pick, and your head coach pulled out a person like Hurts and put in that 3rd string quarterback, what would you have felt?
Well, I would felt that for one, we're not trying to win the game, which is important at all times. And I would have felt like, what's going on? This is not what we play the game for. And so I wouldn't have felt good about it. I think, but I can see too what Doug Peterson was doing was he wanted to get some evaluation on some game, because they didn't have a preseason game this year. So I can see that they probably told those players. Usually they tell the players before the game what's going to happen coming up in the game. So he probably told that player that he was going to play the last quarter, and regardless of the score, they out of the playoffs. So that probably was already told throughout the whole team. The whole team probably knew exactly what the team was going to do.
Well, let me follow up, Jack, real quick before I let you go. I watched the game from beginning to end, Byron. And at the end of the game, the players were visibly upset about what happened. There was confrontations on the sideline. Some of the veterans were sitting on the bench well after the game. Hurts the tight end. That might have been his last game as an Eagle. The defense played their butts off. I watched the game, as I said. The offensive line did a very good job. The running game was pretty good. If that's so, if they were told that, why would they be so upset at the end?
I don't know. Well, probably everybody on the offensive side probably knew about it. The defensive side might didn't know. So sometimes you get that also. That might have been the situation in the game that Doug decided to play this guy, and the last quarter, and wanted to see what he could do under pressure. But I just think it's usually the head coach call whether or not how the game go and who plays and whatnot. But that's probably the situation. But I think you always play the game to win, and I think that was really bad. That was really bad taste because everybody talked about it the next day, and I know the Eagles could have probably won that game.
Yeah, what people don't realize is Nate Sudfeld has been in the league a few years. And when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, he was next man in if Nick Foles would have gotten injured because Carson Wentz was out for that game with an injury. Could you imagine that went on during a Super Bowl game when they played New England? And what bothered me wasn't the move itself. Okay, I could understand the guys on your roster. He was a train wreck. That was like the worst quarterback performance you could see minus interceptions. I mean, he was terrible in there. Don't players have an idea during practice what a quarterback's capable of doing? And why would the coaching staff want to even look at a guy who was that awful? I mean, you have him as a roster spot because someone's got to take snaps if Hurts gets injured. But what are they evaluating him for? He has no prayer of being, a starter next year, getting any significant time. That's what I don't get. Had he played well, we wouldn't have put down the move, but I didn't know how bad he was. And
I exactly agree with that. And that's the reason why I really didn't see why I play this guy when he'd been in the league a couple of years and they kind of know his ability and what he's capable of. But, I honestly was like shaking my head because it's so disappointing. But that's why you got to control your own destiny. That's why. And we only had one losing year with the Giants. My rookie year, the year that Parcells, took over the team, it was 3-13-1, 3-12-1, or something like that. But after that, we had to control our own destiny. And so you get in a position to where you have to play each game, and each game is so important. You don't rely on another team to let you into the playoff. That's why you have to play the game honestly.
I agree.
Hard.
I definitely agree with that, Byron. So let's look a little fallout in the NFC overall. Evan Ingram. What do the Giants do with Evan Ingram? I mean, he makes Pro Bowl, I don't know how this year. He's a great athlete. He can take it from coast to coast, but he costs the Giants games all the time, Byron. I mean, he makes drops. Last game almost cost him the Giants the game with that interception right off his face mask. He's dropped easy throws that could have helped the Giants, run out the clock and win games. Now, I know it's not one single player's fault, but there comes a time in a game when you need something from your star player, the guy that you're thinking about depending on, and he hasn't been able to do it, Byron. What do the Giants do with him?
I think he might need to do what Parsons did with me. He had me come and take a concentration class down here in North Texas. So I had a real big article in the paper my second year in the league where I typically took a concentration class, and it really did help my career because at the end, you're not quite having to focus on the ball. And so that concentration class, it was a psychology class, and it helped me. So I think he needs to take a course. I think just a little thing like that because he have everything else. Evidently, he's not looking at the ball all the way at the very last end of catching that point of that ball, and he losing. He just losing focus. And I think if he take a concentration class, I think it'll make him even a much better player. He'll probably be top 3 player.
You got contacts over there. Why don't you call him up and give him that advice, Byron? I mean,
that's why I think a lot of these young players sometimes need to get some older players and talk to them because sometimes you give them some insight that they might need.
I think it's magnified because he drops passes in big spots. If it would happen early in the game, we wouldn't make such a big deal out of it. You just live with that problem and figure he's a really good talent. He's just going to drop a ball once in a while and disappoint you that way. And you just have to basically live with it.
But you got to be able to catch, like Devontae Smith, he catch so many balls after practice. That's why he won the Heisman. And so I just think, little things that you can do to really improve your skill level. And I think that's what he needs to do because he got great talent.
Well, you know about receiving, obviously. Devontae Smith, the Jets can have him at number 2 if they want. Is he a generational talent, the type like a Randy Moss or Jerry Rice? I mean, maybe I shouldn't quite mention the name Jerry Rice. That's a bit of a stretch. But would he be a Michael Irvin type talent as far as having that type of career? Is he the type of receiver the Jets will really regret, if they turn him down? Let's say they take an offensive lineman or another position outside a quarterback.
Well, I think Devontae Smith is one of those players that come around every 10 years, and you have to take him. And I think if you can get him, you better get him because he's a special talent.
He's dropping to a number
once
11.
Every 10 years. I'm listening as a Jet fan.
Yes.
Yeah, every 10 years.
Jets will trade down.
These kind of players come around every 10 years now. The one thing that my concern would be how healthy he can be on the next level because he got to buck up some and he got to get a little bit stronger because in the NFL it's hard to get out that line of scrimmage at times.
Yeah. And he'll drop to number 11, Jack and Byron, which will be great for the Giants. Let's talk about the Cowboys. Everyone, here they come. The talent's coming through. They're going to make a run in the playoffs. When will people ever learn, Byron? When will people ever learn that Dallas is good enough maybe to get to the playoffs, but with the way it's constructed over there right now, and this has been since our offensive coordinator was there, that they cannot put it together at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something about there's too much going on. But this year they was affected by the injuries, of course, especially on the O-line. And their defense still is suspect. And then the defensive coordinator, I mean, they got some things that they got to work out, I think, in order to get to the next level. But they competitive, and they're American team, so-called, but they get a lot of new coverage, but other than that, I mean, they're just a normal team that might go to the playoff.
I got faith in Jerry Jones. He's going to fire himself as GM, and the new GM he hires has to report directly to him and Jerry has to sign off on anything the new GM says.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think they need to hire you as GM or somebody like you, because they need a football guy in there that really can manage the players and manage, bringing in the right type of chemistry for the team.
I think you're right with the chemistry part, 100%, Byron. I really do. I think that's the biggest problem the Cowboys have had. And suggesting that Jack be hired is just totally.
I don't know about that. I mean, I wouldn't mind. I always play offensive coordinator as a fan. I've done that for years and years, and it's really, you get used to doing it. You watch a game, you notice, certain tendencies. I want to run the ball to the right side, when you should pass, the play selection. I think anyone could do that. I'm a big believer. If you have a veteran quarterback, let him call the plays, help him out, send things in. If that quarterback has a close relationship with the offensive coordinator, they work together. The receivers could come back to the huddle. They sometimes will tell the quarterback, if you could trust them, that I can beat my guy on the inside, on a given play. You don't get that anymore. I mean, what makes the offensive coordinator more knowledgeable than the quarterback or the players on the field? The guy retires. He was a player. The next year, he's up there as an offensive coordinator. What makes him smarter all of a sudden? I can never get that.
I agree with you totally. I think the game is that part of the game is still the same, and some teams done got away from that. It just blows my mind that they don't have options on running plays. Like, they don't run draws no more.
I said that to Mac the other day.
So little things like that I have seen.
Why, Byron?
Just create these mismatches.
Byron, why are you encouraging this man? We all know that. You know what I mean?
This is a playoff run, and this is a new season. So Jack getting a new start. Getting a clean slate.
Byron.
We ain't talking about no relief pitcher and relief quarterback. We talking about playoffs.
Byron, I didn't even mention this, but now that Matt gave me a football trivia question yesterday, a hard one. I nailed it perfectly, and he said it was wrong.
Yes.
I threw in the red flag, but he made like he didn't see the red flag and put it down, and I was wrong yesterday.
Yes.
I Googled it after. I was correct.
Yes.
Congratulations. Well, you might need to tell Mike McCarthy to throw the red flag out more than 2 times in the whole 17-game season. So,
yes,
the red flag is really good. Hey, Jack, you know your stuff, though. I got to give you credit.
And great point about McCarthy. And, of course, Jack, knowing the answer to the trivia question would make him an outstanding offensive coordinator. So let's talk about the team left in the NFC East real quick, Byron. The Redskins. Formerly the Redskins, I should say. Of course, I'll probably call them the Redskins till the day I die. But the Washington team is going against Tampa Bay. They have a good defense. The quarterback we're not sure of. We don't know if Smith is starting or not. There's a receiver that has injuries. One thing they can't afford, Washington, is Alex Smith not playing, because they won't stand a chance against that Tampa Bay team.
No doubt. And but I think they'll play. They're gonna play Tampa pretty hard. They go. That defense is playing well.
Yeah.
And, back in the day, they always say defense win championships. So it's gonna be a good game. I don't think Tampa Bay just gonna come in there and dominate.
Maybe in the beginning, I think they'll hold their own, Byron, but I think eventually they'll get worn down, because Tampa Bay defense is pretty good too. So yes. I mean, I think offensively they just don't match up well with that secondary, and I think that eventually they'll play tough in the beginning, but eventually.
Well, Mac, Chase Young is saying he's coming after Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Byron, how important is this bulletin board stuff? I think it's overrated. I mean, Tampa Bay has got to be up for the game. It's a must game for them. It's not a must game for Washington. Washington can lose the game and say they've had a good season. They took a step in the right direction. They won the East. They made the playoffs. They achieved more than anyone thought they would. But if Tampa Bay loses the game, despite a decent 11-5 record, the year's a disaster, as it turns out, with all the players that Brady, brought in to join them there. It's a failure if they lose this game. Tampa's at least got to win one playoff game, and in all reality, they really need to make they've got to get to the Super Bowl to call the year success. But it's it's awful for Tampa if they lose this game.
Well, one thing that Tom Brady have is playoff experience, and he it's a whole new. He gonna have those. They gonna have that team ready to go. And with Tom Brady and the guys there that bringing in the playoff, they got so much playoff experience that they know what this run is going to be about. I think that's the advantage that they're going to really have.
I agree with that 100%, Byron. So on the other NFC games, Byron, we got the Rams at the Seahawks. The Rams probably will not have their starting quarterback again. The Rams got a little bit better defense than the Seahawks. The Seahawks have a better offense than the Rams right now without their quarterback there. Who do you like in that game?
Well, Pete Carroll have never lost a playoff game in Seattle.
Yeah.
Think about that. So I think Seahawks going to be ready to go. Of course, the Rams got some players injured as well, the quarterback and so forth. But Pete Carroll have never lost a playoff game in Seattle.
I didn't realize that. Huh,
yeah.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, but the fans won't be there this year, Byron. So that
right,
12th man yelling and you can't hear the words in the huddle aren't going to be there.
But Sean McVay, man, he's a hell of a coach.
John Wolford, if he's quarterbacking the Rams, how much is that a drop off from Jared Goff?
Well, I think the key gonna be special teams. I think if the Rams special team outplay Seattle special team, it'd be more of a tighter game. So we'll see.
That's a good point.
The Seahawks hadn't really been beating nobody, dominating a whole lot of people this year. So the Rams, they have a great strategy, great staff, and like I say, Sean McVay, man, he's an awesome coach.
Yeah, he is. So we got the Bears and the Saints at the end. Drew Brees doesn't look like he did, but even 80% Drew Brees is pretty good, Byron. Against the Bears finally in the playoffs when it looked like they weren't gonna be there in the beginning of the year. Of course, Mitch Trubisky is the biggest news there. What's going to happen with him after the year because he's coming up on the contract? Do you see the Bears having a chance at beating the Saints?
No, sir. I don't think the Saints gonna put it on them. The Bears, though, you have to give them credit for the tenacity, how hard they played at the end of the season, and they deserve to get in the playoff this year. So I'm happy for the organization. I think that they can build on that, and I think the Bears can be very competitive. I mean, they had a great defense, so but they ain't gonna be able to stay close to the New Orleans Saints this weekend.
I don't know, is anger ever an issue with the team at all? I mean, it sounds good, but if any team would have a pent-up anger, I would think it would be the New Orleans Saints, the way they've went out in the playoffs the last couple of years on that fluke play with the Vikings where they got eliminated, and then the no call in the Ram game that deprived them of going to the Super Bowl and playing New England instead of the Rams. And I keep getting the feeling that window is closing. Maybe it's not, but I get that feeling. And if any team has a now or never type thing, to have to win the Super Bowl, I would think it would be the Rams. I mean, the Saints.
Yeah, and plus Drew Brees, they trying to get him in towards retirement, but they keep talking about that. But yeah, the Saints gonna have to definitely make up for the last couple of years of what happened in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Hey, Byron, since you're here and we didn't do it yet.
Underdog.
No need to fear. Underdog is here. When criminals in this world appear and break the laws that they should fear and frighten all who see or hear, the cry goes up both far and near for underdog.
Guys, I love that song. I know it might be bothersome, this song, but I'm going to play that every time we have Underdog Prediction. One of my favorite cartoons, and of course, it has the word underdog in it, so that's my little bit. So, Byron, we picked the underdogs that are 6 points or over, and as it gets closer, I would imagine, unless the Chiefs are playing a team that's average, the point spreads will go down, so we'll adjust then. But we have 4 teams that are underdogs by 6 or more. We have the Colts that are getting 6.5 of the Bills. Washington getting 7.5 at the Bucks. The Bears getting 10 at New Orleans, and Cleveland getting 6 at Pittsburgh. So that's the 4 games that are really, really underdogs. And what we want is your best chance, not guaranteed, but best chance of one of those teams that might pull out the win.
For me, it's going to be the Browns. I think the Browns and the Steelers. The Steelers really hadn't played a whole lot in the last 6 weeks, so I'm gonna go with the Browns.
Jack, who do you got?
Well, you have to do a process of elimination. Byron mentions the Browns. If you want to use logic, the Browns could barely beat the Steelers playing in Cleveland, and the Steelers are playing their B team. So if you want to use that logic, you'd think now they're playing in Pittsburgh. The Steelers starters are rested. They're ready to go. But the Browns are probably going to give them a good game. I don't like the way the Steelers have looked the last few games of the year. They pulled out that game with Indianapolis. Had they lost that game, they'd be going into these playoffs a complete mess. But you got to consider half the Brown coaching staff, maybe not half, but their head coach, some of their assistants aren't even going to be there. So where's the leadership going to come from? In all due respect to Baker Mayfield, I just don't see him being a voice rallying the whole team around him. He hasn't gotten to that point. So where's the leadership really going to come from? Their defense is going to have to come up big behind Myles Garrett. But I'm going to have to go with the Steelers in that game. And it's a given to me that the Buccaneers are going to beat the Redskins. Well, I'm doing a process of elimination, Matt, because I don't feel any of them are going to win.
Jack,
I have to say, I got to look at quality. If I have to go with an underdog to win, it's going to be the Indianapolis Colts to beat the Buffalo Bills, because the Indianapolis Colts are a very good team, a very good team. Okay, they got a great offensive line. They're well balanced. A great coach, Frank Reich. Phillip Rivers, is destiny going to be on his side this year to finally get to a Super Bowl? Because if it's his last year, he's had a Hall of Fame career without, going to one. The Colt defensive coordinator, Matt Eberfluss, reportedly is being interviewed by the Jets. And that's another sticking point with me. I don't think any assistants should ever be allowed to be interviewed during the playoffs. I don't think any head coaches should be allowed to be hired. The process shouldn't be allowed to start until the Super Bowl's over, because it's a distraction. But with that said, the Colts are really well balanced. The Bills have been riding high and all, but the Colts are good enough to beat anyone. So I would say that they're my one underdog team that could spring a big upset.
Okay, so I'm going with Byron. That's my pick too. I think Cleveland, with their running, it's going to be a matchups. If Cleveland get that running game going, Pittsburgh's in trouble. I really think Pittsburgh throwing the ball all over the field is going to bite them in this game. So I still think Pittsburgh reality will win. But if I had to pick someone that would make to upset someone this weekend, I would go with the Cleveland Browns. So I'm with you, Byron. And before we let you go, Byron, you have the NFLPA shirt on, and we don't talk about that a lot, that you're also an NFL representative for the Players Association. Any kind of news about what's going on as far as any upcoming contract, any negotiations, the COVID update, anything that you can give us before we let you go?
Well, right now, they just want to make sure the control of how many fans they're gonna allow to come to the games. Make sure these players staying away from different people as well off the field. I think they've been doing a real good job of that, and they still talking about the Super Bowl and how they gonna conduct the Super Bowl. So those are the things that's being talked about right now. But we just completed our last collective bargaining agreement this past year, and a lot of players are getting some upgraded benefits, which is very important for retired players and their families. So they've done a real good job on the benefits and players getting some new integrated plans of actions on what they apply for as health care and reconstructions and stem cells and things like that. So we're doing a good job at making sure these families are being updated and these players are being taken care of.
Excellent. And one more quick question. I know you had a plan of having your camp down at the Super Bowl this year in that area. How's that going, Byron?
Well, right now we probably it's 50-50. I don't know if we're gonna have anything this year because of the COVID, and we usually go into these communities and do football camps with the kids, but this year it's looking really slim that we might not be able to do it. And so what we might have to do is adopt a school or something. I'm talking to one of the other NFL players that's in Tampa named James Harrell, and maybe he's involved with the schools and some of the sheriff departments. And so we're gonna probably try to do something. We can do it virtual, and so we're gonna figure out something. So I'm gonna give him a call in the next day or so. We're gonna figure out something that we'll be able to help some kids out, some of these underserved communities, and try to figure out something.
Excellent stuff, Byron. Thank you for coming in again this week. It's a pleasure having you. It's a pleasure having someone that actually played professional football that can give us points of views that, a lot of other people can't. And your knowledge is great, and your connections with the Giants are still great. So thank you for coming on, and we hope to see you again next Friday, Byron.
All right, thank you guys. Y'all have a great week, and let's get this playoff going. I'm excited about what's going to happen going to the Super Bowl.
Me too.
3 games Saturday, 3 games Sunday.
Should be great.
And they have one at night. So they have one Saturday night and Sunday night. So that's good. You get to just plan out your whole day.
And then the college championship game after that. And we could study out Justin Fields, Devonta Smith. It's kind of NFL scouting for me, that game.
Definitely.
There's a lot of guys from those games going to the NFL. They have some players on that field.
All right, guys. Byron, thank you again. We'll let you go, and have a great day. Keep up the great work, and we'll see you next week, Byron.
Take care, Byron.
So there you go. The great Byron Williams again joins us, Jack, with his insight, his knowledge, and we can't get that. You can't get that on a lot of shows, Jack. So,
and I'm glad he respects my football knowledge as well, Mac. Unlike
you. You're the new offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys, which is excellent, Jack. So
we didn't talk about the Dak Prescott contract situation. That's going on and on and on.
So we'll get back to the show after this break, folks. We have Keith Engle from TGI Sports Talk, a great guest, a great knowledge of the Patriots, the Knicks, and the AFC as a total. So we had our NFC. Next, we'll have our AFC update coming, Jack. So we'll be right back after this, folks. Please stay with us.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner? Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight. Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too. Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath,
coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health. Connecticut Healthy.
You talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live 8 to 10 a.m. Wednesday through Sunday. That's where you can see us. We're on our Friday weekend review right now. Jack, we just had on Byron Williams giving us an NFL player's perspective on not only what happened in the Washington Eagle game. He gave us perspective of playoffs, what it's like to be in the playoffs, and also complimented you on your offensive prowess as a possible.
No, Byron understands. The draw play's a dinosaur. That used to be one of the great offensive plays in football. Teams don't call draw plays anymore. I mean, what's happened to the game?
Yeah, it's changed, Jack, a lot. Some for the better, as far as health of players go, and some for the worse, where ticky-tack penalties are called. And again, that's something that has happened in the past, but more so now. Some things are almost impossible not to do when you're on the field running full speed, and you can't expect some players to pull up or not to continue what they're doing at the last second. But I mean, it is what it is now. And I thought it was funny when I said about Dallas, everybody every year, Jack, in the start of the year, Dallas has a lot of talent and they're going to go to the Super Bowl, or when they start winning some games, here come the Cowboys and their talent. And the Giants put a kibosh on that in a big way in their last game against the Cowboys.
For one of our debate shows, we should debate sometime. What's a harder position to play, quarterback or cornerback? A quarterback has to know the system. He has to learn much more, obviously. But is there a harder position in football to play than guarding an elite receiver one-on-one?
In today's game.
He knows where he's going, what he's going to do, and you can just anticipate. And the speed, the athleticism, the split decision, thinking. I mean, wow, is that difficult?
I agree with you, Jack. I mean, especially in today's game where, you can hardly even touch the receiver at all. They have allowed, which I've been impressed with, they have allowed a little bit of hand fighting in the games. And normally in the playoffs, Jack, it's not called as tight. I guess it's because they're going to let the players play a little bit more. But I think if you're going to call a penalty in the regular season, you should be calling the playoffs too. But, it is what it is. Coming up next, folks, we'll have TGI Sports Talk host Keith Engle, who'll be joining us in a few minutes. He's always a pleasure to have on. He put out a video, Jack, on Northeast Streaming Sports about he was tired. So he has a different perspective than me, and a different perspective, a little bit different than Byron. But he's tired of all the talk, and the teams have been, tanking for years in all sports to get better players and stuff like that. And of course, he says, which I said too, and you have said, if you're going to in that position where you didn't win the division on your own merits, well, then you're the one that made that mistake, and it's your fault when it comes down to it. Which I agree with that 100%. I just don't like any team not playing 100% in any game, because when you're going to a stadium and even in preseason, Jack, they complain about having preseason games because you don't see the quality and all this stuff. But the fans go to the game to expect, and they pay money for, and we watch TV that has commercials that pays money for watching a real football game. And to me, that's an obligation to me as a team, to give your best effort for a coach to put you in the best position to win, whether the game matters in the big scheme or doesn't. To me, you're responsible to the fans. You're responsible to the people paying your salaries, that to put forth the best product. And even when it comes to teams that are in the playoffs and we say, oh, they deserve the right to rest their players. Well, do they? I mean, if I go to that game and I'm paying $200 a ticket and you have 60,000 people, under normal circumstances, paying for that ticket, what gives them the right? What gives them the choice of not to put forth the best effort? I think we're giving them a big pass now, Jack.
The guys on the field are giving their best effort. They just happen to be backups when the team is resting their players. So they're not doing anything wrong. A team that's going to the playoffs and the last game of the season, there's nothing at stake for them as far as moving up in the seed. They're happy with their playoff position. And it all comes down to the playoffs. It would be insane to play their starters the way the Steelers did last week. The Steelers didn't play their starters. I mean,
right.
They didn't send them to Cleveland because they knew they'd be playing Cleveland at home the following week in the playoffs. So they rested their starters so they'd be primed so they could give their best effort to the playoffs. In the playoffs,
I understand
it would have been
that.
crazy had they, had Mike Tomlin.
Well, you say that.
But listen, it all comes down to what Doug Peterson did. Doug Peterson, I don't feel necessarily did anything wrong. Nate Sudfeld has been on his roster for a few years. He wasn't a late waiver pickup this year. He wasn't an emergency pickup. He was an established play on their team. He just played miserably. If you want to make an argument, after Nate Sudfeld had a couple of possessions, maybe they should have yanked him out because he was brutally bad. And you could tell all the air went out of the team when he was in there, and should have came back to Jalen Hurts at that point for the good of the team. I can understand that, but listen, you have a right to rest your players certain times. What you don't have a right to do is tell them not to put forth the best effort, because that would be criminal if anyone ever did that.
I disagree with them having a right to do anything, Jack. They have a right, and then we as fans have a right to see the best players in the best game. That's what we pay for. We don't pay for to watch a quarterback that can't complete a pass. We don't pay to go watch a team rest their players. And let me finish, Jack. There was a game at the end of the season where the Giants and the Patriots played. Both teams had won their divisions. No problem. They're both in the playoffs. Every player, every starter played all snaps, Jack. The Giants lost that game 38-35. And that was their Super Bowl year when they went and beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and they upset them. Both established coaches, Coughlin and Belichick, arguably two at the time. Belichick, probably one of the greatest head coaches of all time, if not the greatest. Tom Coughlin, who under his coaching brought two different teams, the Giants to the Super Bowl twice, also brought, if I'm not mistaken, the Jaguars to the championship. Two established, very good coaches decided that in the last game they're going to let it all hang out. Now, if you think that, well, Peterson's smarter than Belichick or Coughlin, or that Mike Tomlin is smarter, I'm not saying he's smart as, but not smarter than Belichick or Coughlin, I disagree with you. So you saying that the team resting their players, they have a right to do. Sure they do. But don't we as a right as fans, as a people that watch football and want to see the best game we can, don't we have a right to see that?
That situation was different, Mac. It was the last game of the season. The Patriots were having a bye the next week, so they were going to get the rest week. So it was in their benefit to play it like on a regular basis, like they needed the game to win. And also, the Patriots had to play hard. They were unbeaten. They didn't want to take their foot off the pedal and lose the game. So they were trying every way to win. And with the Giants, I forgot the exact playoff seed, but they're playing the great New England Patriots. It was a big game. It was a national game. It was high profile. I'm going to give you a game that no one talks about that happened last week. The same day as the Eagle game with the Redskins. The Kansas City Chiefs were 14-1, and they're playing the Los Angeles Chargers. And the Chiefs basically played their second string guys because they had home field locked up throughout the playoffs. And even though they're getting a bye next week, they wanted their guys to have additional rest. No one talks about that. The Chargers won that game. The Chiefs had a I don't care attitude about the game. So don't tell me they were doing everything to win the game. Their coaching staff acted the same way as
I disagree with that.
Did with the Eagles.
I disagree with that too, Jack. I disagree with the Steelers too. I disagree with all that. I think that you owe the fans, the people that are paying your salaries, which that's what it is. They're paying the owners their salaries. That you're supposed to put out the product that somebody would want to watch. If I knew that third string quarterback was going to come in the game, I wouldn't even have watched the game. I wouldn't even have watched it. So, to me, Jack, we're giving these teams a pass right now. We're saying, yeah, you got a right to do that because you won. You have a playoff seed. That never happened in the past, Jack. That when I watch football, these teams they played their starting players. I'm going a little bit farther back than 10, 20 years ago. They always played their starting players or players that deserved at least to come in there and start or come in and play. And I watched the Eagles game, and they not only has he been a player on the Eagles for years, so they already know what he's capable of doing, Jack. This, like you said, this is not a preseason game. This is not to check out how good he is or how bad he is. That's not what this was. This was because we just want to do this. So that's the biggest excuse and a terrible excuse.
But he did leave his other starters in there. There were other quality players in there on offense. Listen, I hated seeing him in there. It was brutal seeing Nate Sudfeld in there. I'm talking philosophy now. After he was looking awful in there, it was an embarrassment not only to him. His teammates are probably fond of Nate Sudfeld, and they hated to see him go through what he was going through. And it kind of made me wonder, how did he have a roster spot? He was so bad. I mean, so bad in there. It's like maybe it was an aberration. I don't know. But it left a terrible taste what was going on. And you could tell the Eagle players on the bench, their heads would be down. He demoralized his own team as well as the Giants. Doug Peterson.
Listen, I don't care about the Giants or Cowboys. That has nothing to do with anything to me. To me, I'm at the thought that no matter where you're at or what position you're at, now if they need a rest because they're hurt, if they need sure, of course, definitely. If they're banged up, yeah, okay.
Everyone is banged up in the NFL, Mac. Everyone.
You know what I'm talking about, Jack. I'm talking about banged up enough that if you play, and of course you can always get hurt. That's also true too. But what I'm saying is that if you're good enough to play, you should play. That's all I'm saying. So, I mean, I know Keith, like I said, Keith will be coming up, and he's tired of hearing about it. But I think there's a bigger point to it than just what the Eagles
But
did.
the players don't tank on the field. The players are giving a hard effort.
Oh, I agree.
No one is questioning how hard the Eagles were trying. They just questioned the move of taking Jalen Hurts out for Nate Sudfeld. That's all it is. The players were doing all they could to win the game on the Eagles, the players who were on the field.
I agree. I agree with that, Jack. And again, as you stated, why Wentz was not suited up, I have no idea. So
let me tell you, the Jets beat the L.A. Rams to fall out of the first seed for Trevor Lawrence, and people are criticizing them like them winning the game.
Yeah.
So you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, but see, Jack, that, not only has the game changed, but the fans have changed. I've watched football since the 1960s, Jack, the late 60s. And the fans, when we watched the game, I never remember hearing anybody saying, I hope they lose. And I say, oh, our draft pick is going to be better. Or, we're going to be in a better position because of that. I never heard of that in my life. I went through some lean years with my team in the late 60s. I mean, our teams were not that good. And I never can remember trying to hope my team loses. I can never remember.
Let me tell you, fans do. Fans in general, I hate to say it, they're not as loyal as they should be. That's to put it kindly. And I'll give you a case in point. One of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, you would agree, is Peyton Manning.
Yes.
Peyton Manning was injured and had to sit out a full season. And to show you how great Peyton Manning was, they went from a playoff team to, I forgot their record, but they got the first overall pick in the draft that year, and Andrew Luck was available.
Right.
While the Colts are losing, fans in the stands are holding up banners that they're going to get Andrew Luck.
Right.
Imagine how that makes Peyton Manning feel. An absolute icon.
I'll tell you right now, Jack, if I was a fan of that game, I would have had some words with them people. Backstage right now, we have a great analyst. He has a great show called TGI Sports Talk. He knows a lot about football, baseball. He knows a lot about everything. And this man has great guests on his show. And he comes in every Friday and visits with us. And we always love having him on because of his knowledge and his opinions, even when I disagree with him. Let's bring on Keith Engle, the host of TGI Sports Talk. How you doing, Keith?
Thank you for that gracious entrance. I got a feeling we disagree on what you were just talking about, but
yes, we do, big time. But it's more philosophy, Keith, than it is about what actually happened. So sometimes I take it to a higher level, which I probably shouldn't. But being, loving the game as much as I do, playing it, coaching it, and following it for long as I have, some things just really tick me off as far as direction that the league's going in certain things. And that's all in all sports too. I mean, it's not just football. But I really believe that the teams owe the fans to put out the best product they can. I don't care if they're 0-16. I think that they owe the fans to give them the best game to go see or to watch on TV. And anything less than that, I think, is wrong. But it is what it is.
I don't disagree with you on those points for sure. I mean, that's what the fans are entitled to. I'm a little more, I think my outrage was more driven by the Giants fans' outrage, and I'm like, stop, just go win 8 games. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, well, we're talking about what the NFL owns fans. They make them go to these preseason games, which are meaningless, if they want to continue to be season ticket holders, okay? Yeah. And make them purchase tickets for that. I mean, that's an issue which is more upsetting to fans than a team resting players because they're getting ready for, a playoff game.
Well, to me, then, to answer that real quick before Keith does, then they shouldn't be season ticket holders, because to me, the preseason is just as important. I should say just as important, but almost. Wait a minute, let me finish. Is almost as important to the team itself, the coaching staff, for evaluation and for future of the team. I can name you, Jack, Super Bowl champions and Hall of Famers that didn't get drafted. I can name you dozens that ended up making huge plays in Super Bowls that if they didn't have a chance to play preseason games would have never been part of the team. So I understand what you're saying to a point, But I think for the good of the team and for the good of the fans in the future, the preseason games are pretty important. But that's just my opinion.
Well, preseason in general is important. The games themselves, yes, to a certain extent. I don't think we need 4 of them necessarily, but preseason is important, and I can speak to that from the Patriots' experience this year.
Yeah.
The fact that mini camps were disrupted, that preseason was disrupted, really changed what they are known for doing, and that's developing players that we don't even know about in April. And so it is important, the preseason, for sure. You can't just start playing games.
Yeah, as a lot of teams have found out. In fact, I always say to the Giant fans when they say stuff like that, I just bring up Victor Cruz, and they kind of don't know what to say. But, man, there are Kurt Warner, Warren Moon. I mean, the list goes on and on of players that weren't drafted and ended up being Hall of Famers and bringing teams and making huge plays in the Super Bowls for those teams. So I understand that it may not be as entertaining, but it's not supposed to be as entertaining. It's supposed to be part of developing the team. It's not has anything to do with resting players. So Keith, let's get into the Patriots' last one. We'll kind of wrap up the Patriots season here. They won 28-14. They beat the Jets. The Jets, I don't say they should beat the Jets because the Jets were playing tough. The Patriots weren't playing so good. Cam Newton, of course, ran really well again, but he did, that's not the knock against Cam Newton. But I knew Bill Belichick was going to go out there to win that game. I didn't care what anybody said as far as it not meaning nothing to him. That's for sure.
That always means something to Belichick. I mean, he's not. We talk about the tanking, and I don't think you'll ever see that team tank to try to enhance their draft position. And they wanted to win the game. The players played well. The players, again, you see teams in the Patriots situation this year, and a lot of times they quit, and you can see that they quit. But the Patriots, as far as I can tell, did not stop playing hard all year long. They didn't play well, especially on defense. The offense. It's funny. We talk about how bad the offense played, but I was digging into some analytics here this week, and when you really dig down and points per possession, they average the same points per possession this year as they did last year with Tom Brady.
Wow.
They did it a whole different way. I mean, and that's, I'm not saying it's a good thing either, because last year's offense was not that good. So it really, really, really hurt them this year, in my mind. Was as much as the offense or more, it was the downfall of the defense, especially the front seven. So again, the season, it is what it is. You're not going to go on winning division titles for 20 years. We're going to step back. I don't see this as a rebuild. I see it as a reload, and I think they'll come back with.
Well, you know what the problem is on the reload? Even if the Patriots come back and they're their old self, there's a couple of other gunslingers in the AFC East that they didn't have before. The Buffalo Bills are going to be good for a while, I think. And the Miami Dolphins are a rising team. So it's going to be tough. And those are 4 games out of the 16 in their schedule they're going to have to play. So it's going to be tough, even if the Patriots can get back to a semblance of their old ways.
That's okay. You know what? I'll be honest with you. If they come back next year and get back competitive in that division, win that division, for years, the detractors have said, yeah, well, you get to play 8 games or 6 games against teams that are just awful every year.
The big talk with the Patriots, obviously, in the offseason is going to be who's going to be their quarterback next year. And I wouldn't be surprised if Belichick stretches out the drama, not intentionally, of course. He'll wait until something falls into place. I mean, I saw this mock draft, which was ridiculous, that had Justin Fields falling down to number 15, New England. I couldn't see that happening unless, of course, Justin Fields is, hanging around at number 9 or 10, and Belichick could pull off a deal, move up from 15 and give up a couple of other draft picks, maybe Stephen Gilmore. It's all hypothetical, crazy stuff, but it's fun to talk about.
It is fun to talk about, and it's not his history to trade up; it's his history to trade down, gather up, get draft picks. And I don't know that outside of Trevor Lawrence that there's a sure thing there where he's going to trade up and take somebody. I think he'll be happy to get somebody later on.
Well, Keith, I don't know about that. I think there's some pretty good quality receivers out there that you guys
don't know. I'm a quarterback. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, to me, Keith, I think it is a mini rebuild. I think, of course, you need a quarterback. I think you need some receivers. I think you need a tight end. I think your defense needs to upgrade. So, and not that Belichick can't do this. I know he can. But I think this is going to be one of those years where you're going to see a lot of new faces in New England and maybe some veterans, because you've got a lot of quarterbacks in their last year of their contract, Dalton, Trubisky, and others, and maybe some receivers. But the Alabama has a pretty good crop to draft from Ohio State, Clemson, of course. I can see the Patriots maybe moving up this year and maybe changing their strategy just because I'm not going to say it's an emergency, Keith, but if I know Belichick the way I think I know Belichick, he hates being not competitive and not being at the top. And I think he's going to make some major moves this year.
It's entirely possible. Again, his history being what it is, he could trade up. I'll be honest with you, if it's me, the only guy I trade up to get is Devontae Smith.
Right.
Because he's a game changer and he'll make any quarterback they bring in better. So
I agree with that.
Makes me feel good with the number 2 pick with the Jets, but chances are they'll trade down.
That's where they ought to be picked. They ought to be picking that guy. I keep telling all my friends, and they go, no. We need a lineman. We need to trade down. You're nuts. Take Devontae Smith.
Wow. Okay, good. Yeah, that's nice to hear. Who we don't talk about, actually, is Robert Kraft, who in general has been considered one of the better owners in sports. But it's easy to be a great owner when the team has had the level of success that his team has had at New England. Would Robert Kraft maybe get a little antsy? This is one bad year. Does he look at it just as an off year? Is he going to get more involved in a certain sense that could put a little friction between him and Bill Belichick? Because he has gotten involved before with the Brady Garoppolo situation.
Yeah, and that was kind of a one-off situation. Kraft, and you got to remember who we were talking about, right? Tom Brady. We're not talking about everybody on the team. Bob Kraft has let Bill Belichick run this team, and I don't see that changing because of one down year, which, again, if we're to believe Belichick from his comments, mid-season, they knew this was coming because they sold out the last 5 years. So
but it's easy to forget. Keith, it's easy to forget Kraft once rebuffed Bill Parcells when Bill Parcells didn't want the Patriots to draft Terry Glenn. And you would think Parcells' situation was so powerful, but Kraft said, look, I don't have this scouting department, to ignore them. I have them there for a reason. And they, against Parcells' wishes, they took Terry Glenn. And Parcells was he's a pretty powerful personality as a head coach.
He's a great coach, but he wasn't necessarily a great personnel guy, to be honest with you.
I agree with you.
Bill Parcells wanted Rick Meyer over Drew Bledsoe. So that gives you an idea of what we're talking about. I don't think he's a great coach, and Belichick's just different. Belichick is historically, he's been a better talent evaluator. The recent years that has waned a little bit, and that's why they're in the situation that they're in now. Part of the reason they're in that situation. And it's got to get better. They have to get better with their drafting. This draft is probably the biggest draft that Bill Belichick has had in 20 years.
Wow. I agree with that. 100%. So let's talk a little bit about the AFC East before we're going to end with the Knicks. One general manager came out and said he doesn't believe Tua has the it factor. In other words, they think he thinks he's going to be a good quarterback. He's pretty accurate, but he doesn't think that Tua compares to Herbert or some of the other younger quarterbacks that were drafted in that class, and maybe Herbert is even better as a pro than Tua's going to be. Accurate. He's not fast as or his escapability is not as great as some quarterbacks that maybe his size may hurt him a little bit more than it does other quarterbacks because he can't get away from the rush like them other ones can. I agree to him with a point. I know it's a small sample. I think Tua is very accurate quarterback. I think he's going to be a good, solid quarterback. But to be a franchise quarterback to lead the Dolphins to the Super Bowl, I don't know, Keith. What do you think?
Well, I agree that Herbert's going to be a better long-term quarterback than Tua. I think Tua's biggest problem is, and again, in fairness, I have not seen Tua play as much as I've seen Herbert play. Okay. But what I've seen, he's accurate, and he can certainly be a winning quarterback in the league. My worries about Tua are injuries. Again, they followed him his entire college career. He left at least 2 games that I can think of this year with injuries. And is this going to be a bugaboo with him for his entire career? I don't know. And maybe it's got something to do with his size. I mean, if he stays healthy, he certainly is going to be, I think, a good NFL quarterback. But
he hasn't had any weapons with Miami. And the interesting thing is the Dolphins have the number 3 overall pick in the draft. And if the Jets trade down, chances are the team trading with them would have made a deal to get a quarterback. Chances are that's what's normally the case. And that means Devonta Smith is right there at number 3 with the Dolphins. And we'll be looking at Tua a lot differently if he has that weapon.
I don't disagree.
Tua was 6-3 as a starter. 6-3 as a starter. He was more of a game manager. And we talk about injuries, you mentioned, Keith. But Joe Burrow was the quarterback that got injured this year. I mean, Tua missed some time, but he didn't have that. They said the same about Josh Rosen, and even though Josh Rosen didn't prove himself to be an elite quarterback and he's on the practice squad of the Niners, he took a pounding when he was the Arizona quarterback. They said he was injury prone, and that wasn't a factor.
Well, again, remember with Tua, now we're just looking at 1 year. He had injury issues his entire career at Alabama too. So, and I don't mean any of my comments as a knock against Tua. I think he's going to be, if he stays healthy, he'll be a very successful NFL quarterback. Yeah. And if he gets a weapon like Devontae Smith, Jack, you might be a productive NFL quarterback.
You're really high on Devonta Smith. That gets me excited because I respect your opinion on him. And the idea, if the Jets get him, they hold on to Sam Darnold. Does Sam Darnold become a much improved quarterback?
I love Devontae. I'll tell you what, I was talking him up for the Heisman mid-season when everybody's all over Lawrence and Fields. And I'm like, this kid is the biggest game changer in the game of college football.
Well, Byron Williams said he's a generational talent. He could be, you get a receiver like him once every 10 years. Would you agree on that?
Yeah. And again, the Patriots, if any way they have to get him, I think they would take him, even though Bill Belichick has an aversion to taking wide receivers early. And N'Keal Harry certainly has not done anything to change his opinion of that. But, yes, Devontae Smith is a generational player, I think.
Wow. So Keith, we got one of the locals in the Buffalo Bills. They seem to be explosive. Their defense seems to be getting better as the season went on. I mean, they got a big matchup with the Colts, who are a solid team. They're favored to beat them. Do they have a chance to get into the Super Bowl this year? Can they get through Kansas City? Can they get through the Ravens? Are they that explosive? We've been questioning the Bills all year somewhat over here, but they just keep on winning. And the games they lose, they're losing to really good teams and barely losing. So, it's last play kind of things with them. Are they that good?
They're good. They're definitely good. Are they good enough to get to the Super Bowl? Yes. I don't think they're going to beat Kansas City myself. And again, it took me a while to get on the Buffalo bandwagon this year. It took me a long while to get on the Colt bandwagon this year. This is an interesting game for me, to be honest with you. I'm not a Phillip Rivers fan. I didn't think it was a good move for them early in the year. I was like, he cannot play anymore. But their defense is good. I give them a chance to beat the Bills this week.
Sure.
To be honest with you. And this might be the most dangerous game for the Bills other than the Chiefs, I think. and I give them a puncher's chance to beat Kansas City, but I don't think it's going to happen this year. And I think it's going to be because of the defense. Even though they're not better.
Very possible. I guess you could consider Pittsburgh a local team who we really don't cover. That Cleveland game is very to me, is very much in the balance. I mean, Cleveland, of course, everybody says, well, they barely beat their second stringers last week, blah, blah, blah. But it comes down to matchups, Keith. I mean, it's going to be the front seven against the Steelers against the Cleveland's great running game. And if the running game is successful, they have a chance because Pittsburgh offense isn't physical like it used to be. I mean, they're flinging the ball all over the place. They have great receivers who drop the ball a lot. In fact, they led the league in drops this year. So I think this is the chance that Cleveland has to beat the real Pittsburgh Steelers and go on to the next round. What do you think?
It's possible. Obviously, they've got a lot of guys out with COVID, including their head coach, which is not going to help their situation. I think, again, I've had a hard time getting on the Baker Mayfield wagon as well. I'm not a fan of him in a spot like this. And Roethlisberger's been there. Roethlisberger has played better. Well, he didn't play last week, obviously, but the knock during their losing streak was he couldn't throw the ball down the field. A lot of that was guys dropping balls, though, too, Jack, as you said.
Yep.
And I just think if I got to, with all the COVID situation biting the Browns, a seasoned veteran like Roethlisberger and Mike Tomlin on the sideline, I think the Steelers are going to win this game. I'm surprised the line's not higher, to be honest with you, but.
Yeah, me too. And I think the last game we got in the AFC to get your opinion on is some people are calling it a revenge game where the Titans knocked out Baltimore last year. If you remember, the Titans got up on them quick with some bombs that they threw, and when the Ravens got behind last year, their running game they couldn't feature as much as they normally did. If the Ravens get ahead of you, you're in trouble, as most teams are. Who do you like, Keith, and why?
The Ravens have really righted the ship here since in midseason. It looked to me like they weren't going to make the playoffs. They were, they had hit a very bad streak. They weren't playing good football. They weren't playing good defense. The Titans have been very up and down. They're either blowing teams out. But I go back to that game in Green Bay they played a few weeks ago where they just were not competitive at all. They beat 40-7. And I think the Ravens will win this game. Their defense is still playing well. And like you said, if they get ahead, it could be a matter of whoever gets ahead in this game. I don't know, because, obviously if the Titans can pound you with Derrick Henry, they've got a big advantage there. But Titans, there's something with both these teams. I think there's just something missing. I don't see them winning more than one game, either one of them. But I'm going to pick the Ravens in this game. Simply because I think their defense will slow Derrick Henry down. You can't stop him. And I still am not a fan of Ryan Tannehill. I'm not a fan of a lot of quarterbacks. I'm like, geez.
I hear you.
We should go down the list of every team's quarterback and make a prediction who's going to be their quarterback, whether he's going to be that team's quarterback 2 years from now. 2 years from now. And that would be a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, maybe
Giants, Daniel Jones.
Yeah, we should do that.
There's a lot of question marks around.
Maybe next week we'll do that, Jack. It sounds like a great idea.
I think it's a great idea.
Who's going to be there?
Yeah, that's and that causes for a lot of speculation, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Get me in that conversation. I'll do some homework.
All right, excellent. So let's turn to the NBA. The Knicks. The Knicks. They picked up a big man to one of the coach's favorite, and he's coming on board. Austin Rivers came out and said, as Jack said earlier, that he's been on terrible teams and this ain't one. They look like they're playing together, Keith. They look exciting. God forbid they finish 500 this year. I mean that would be a great upgrade. But Thibodeau's got them young guys playing together, and I always thought that if the Knicks started playing good competitive basketball, if they had the right help at GM, if they had the right coach, then you might get a couple superstars that might say, hey, going over there, I might win a championship or something. just to get, as Jack said, to bring a Westbrook in. I thought maybe they should. Jack disagreed, and maybe he's right. Maybe that would have hurt them in a way from building a good young squad. What are your thoughts on their little mini winning streak here?
Well, I'm excited. I mean, obviously, we talked last week about them beating the Bucks, and they're one of the top 2 teams in the league probably, and they beat a very good Utah team the other night. That's team's not, that's not the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I'm very excited. I know Jack last week kind of poo-pooed me on Julius Randle, but I am going to tell you that kid is playing head and shoulders over what he's ever done before. And somebody's got to score, and somebody's got to rebound. But you just look at his stat line every single night.
And my point is he's a good, solid player who could start on a lot of teams, but he wouldn't be on an elite team. He couldn't be your first or second option on an elite team. But for this type of team with the Knicks, he can be the main guy, because the type of team you have with the Knicks now can go only so far. Maybe they can play 500 ball. Maybe they can snatch a playoff berth, but they're going to get eliminated probably in the first round. It's that type of team to take the next step.
Yeah.
They're going to have to bring in an established NBA star, someone along the lines of a Damian Lillard.
Look, we don't know that there won't be a midseason trade where they bring in a veteran to stabilize this team. They've got some young guys, outside of Randall playing great. Burks has been hurt, but he's been very steady when he's played. Barrett's still up and down a bit, but he's playing, when he plays well, they're really a good team. Peyton's up and down. Mitchell's playing better at center than he was playing earlier in the year. They brought in the established veteran in Gibson. I kind of would have preferred to see Tyson Chandler come in, but that's just me. If they were going to bring one of those guys in. Quickly, again, in limited time, has shown that he has the potentially be that point guard that they need.
Yeah.
Rivers is healthy. They are fairly deep, not with great players, but with role players. And Thibodeau's done a great job of getting them to play hard every night.
And Toppin, what's his situation? You didn't mention him.
Who's that?
Obi Toppin.
And Toppin, he's hurt, probably out till the middle of the month, maybe. But he's also going to have trouble getting minutes right now too, because Randall's going to stunt that the time that he gets. But you got to let the kid play some when he gets back and gets healthy.
Yeah.
So,
believe it or not,
I'm excited about the future that they have, because I think they've got enough. Again, I don't disagree with you, Jack, that Julius Randle isn't leading the Knicks to an NBA championship, but he can be an important cog on a good NBA basketball.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Just not a first or second option.
I love the way they run the offense. 9 assists he had the other night against Utah.
Keith, believe it or not, there are some people that are criticizing Thibodeau for playing his forwards too many minutes. And, of course, we know that the guards are thin and hurt. And the players aren't complaining about it, and they seem to enjoy it. But can you imagine the Knicks off to 5-3, and this is, they look like they can be a little competitive with teams this year, and people are already complaining about how Thibodeau is not resting his forwards enough.
Well, it's funny because Knicks fans have often been called like the most intelligent fans in sports, and I don't know if I agree with that necessarily, because you look at these are all young guys. It's not like we're playing freaking LeBron James 48 minutes a game.
Yeah. Well, Keith, the Knicks obviously are the main NBA team in New York by far, but with the Brooklyn Nets, they're going to own the tabloids soon with Kyrie Irving.
They already do.
They already do, and I'm not a fan. I mean, he's a outstanding player when he puts his mind to it. He's on the court. I don't sell him short at all. But how much can the Nets put up with? I mean, it's trouble brewing.
Do we even know why he didn't show up the other night? Last I heard, Steve Nash didn't even talk to him. Doesn't even know why he wasn't there.
Well, Kyrie did mention an answer to somebody. It was ESPN reported that he said because he didn't want to play.
Oh, well, there you go. I didn't feel like going to
Okay.
work the other day either, and I kind of went and sucked it up for a lot less than he getting paid to not show up.
Well, the last word on that to me, because me and Jack, when we talked about it, opening the show, and we didn't talk about Lindor, which is the biggest news in New York.
Oh, yeah, huge.
I said that if I was in the Nets' place right now, I would throw the hammer down. I would suspend him for 2 weeks without pay. Since you don't want to play, I'll make sure you don't play for 2 weeks. The Nets are still a good, deep team. They can win games without him. They can be competitive and go to playoffs without Kyrie Irving. And I believe that if they don't start and they don't take control of this right now, it's going to hurt them in the long run.
Yeah, I think they do. They need to. I mean, Irvin, I don't know. He's got an overinflated opinion of himself, number one. I mean, he's never been the first cog on any team, and he's never going to be. And he's caused problems now in 3 places.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe they need to move him too. Who knows? We'll see. They got to have. You could get something for him maybe now before. Maybe he'll sail off the end of the flat Earth here, and they won't be able to trade him at all. But
you'll get nickels on the dollar.
I don't mean to offend all the flat earthers out there. By the way, I know that Kyrie's your leader.
Well,
yeah.
Keith, thanks for coming again, as you do always with your analyst of the Patriots and the Knicks and talking about the AFC. It's always a pleasure having you on. As I said, folks, great show over there, TGI Sports Talk. You can check his site out. You can even go to Northeast Streaming Sports Network right now and see everything that he has on his show. He's part of the network with us. So, Keith, thank you for coming on. You have a great day. Enjoy the games this weekend in the playoffs. There's nothing like it. And we'll see you next Friday, my friend.
You guys have a great weekend. Knicks and Nets next week, by the way, guys.
Yeah,
wow, that's fun.
I can't wait for that. Yes, sir. Have a great
weekend.
So there you go, Jack. One of my favorite. Well, we didn't remove him yet. Let's try it again. There we go. He wanted to come back on. So, yeah. Keith,
he gave me some optimism, too. I mean, I'm familiar, obviously, with Devonta Smith, the great, receiver from Alabama.
Right.
He, between Byron and Keith, they think Smith is a generational talent, and he's there for the Jets to take. But my feeling is the Jets will trade down, and I can't say I'd be too happy about that.
Well, Jack, have a little faith. Of course, we didn't talk about Adam Gase being fired, but maybe something's coming down the road. So, Jack, let's take our last quick timeout for today, and we'll be back, folks, right after this. So please stick with us.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting the stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and that station.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Hello.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again.
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversation. So talk with your kid and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service programs, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
If you talk, and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tony tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids tried at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Good morning and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack Hirsch. We're here bringing you the best in sports from the Northeast. We're on Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. So join us when you can and pop in. We're also on Spotify. So if you can't join us on video, you can check us out on Spotify and listen to the show there, Jack. So some exciting things we're doing and getting our show reaching more people as we go. Thanks to Keith Engle for coming in. It's always a pleasure having him on. He does a great job. So, Jack, what I want to do real quick before we get to this day in sports is ask you our trivia question today. And
Wait. Let's backtrack to yesterday.
We will, Jack.
You told everyone I was wrong, and I threw in the red flag. I looked it up, and I was right.
Yes, you were.
We're not passing this comment. You said I was wrong yesterday, and I was proven right. I looked it up after. You was the only man in NFL history who won the Super Bowl as a player, an assistant coach, and as a head coach. You actually two of them. But when I mentioned the man, you said wrong answer. I said Tom Flores.
Yes,
Tom Flores was the backup quarterback for Super Bowl IV for the Kansas City Chiefs and got in the game for a couple of handoffs late when the Chiefs won. Then he was an assistant coach under John Madden when the Raiders won the Super Bowl in 1976. And then in 1980 and 1983, he was the head coach of the Oakland Raiders, who won the Super Bowl as well.
And Jack, I thought we already talked about that when Byron Williams.
We didn't go over all the stats. You didn't certify it.
Jack beat the trivia site when the trivia site said that Mike Ditka was the only player in the history of football to be a head coach, an assistant coach, and a player on a Super Bowl team. And Jack, without even looking it up, came up with another player that did that. The great coach of the Los Angeles
That was
Raiders.
my Hail Mary.
Tom Flores, and you were
was
right.
my Hail Mary trivia answer.
Yeah, it was a great answer, Jack, and you proved the site wrong. So this question, I don't think you'll prove it wrong because it's a pretty simple one. What is Canada's national sport, Jack?
Well, it's got to be hockey.
That's what I thought.
Come on. You're not going to tell me boxing. You're not going to tell me.
No.
it's got to be.
You won't believe the answer,
That's
Jack.
not an answer. That's a matter of opinion, man.
Well, the trivia, the national sports, and if you want to look that up, the national sport of the Canadian national sport, believe it or not, is lacrosse.
No, but that's all a matter of opinion.
Well, I think they have official. I think they have official. The official national sport up there, and from what the site says, it's lacrosse, Jack.
They have such a wait. Does Canada? And I'm asking. I'm trying to
Right.
Does Canada have a thing that they actually label an official sport? Because
I guess they do. Like you have a national flower and a national bird and all that stuff. So if you get a chance, look that up because I didn't believe the answer. And if this is wrong, that is not their official national sport.
I don't think any country has an official sport. They have a sport which they kind of take pride in, like is theirs. And I know hockey.
And you would think it's hockey.
Pride in is
you
the
would
ones
think it's
that,
hockey.
yeah.
Even though they lost to us in the junior championship, I would have thought that too. But according to the site, believe it or not, it's lacrosse. So with that in mind, Jack.
I mean, come on, what kind of questions that Mac? Who's a national?
Well, because I knew you would think the same thing I thought, which would be, of course, hockey. So I figured it was very interesting if that's the case.
So they labeled it as their national sport.
That's
but they've
what
been saying all along that hockey is their national sport.
Right. So maybe the people speaking don't even know.
I thought you were going to say wrestling, WWE,
Right.
Bret the Hitman Hart's a Canadian. They take a lot of pride in him.
Right. So I just can go off what the site says, Jack. This is not my opinion. It's just what it says at, trivia questions, sport trivia questions.
Got it.
So,
I don't think there's an answer to that, Mac. I question whether it's an official or whatever. Okay.
Is that a yellow flag or a red flag, Jack?
I'm not even bothering with the flag on that one. That's like calling a penalty on my team, but it's not even worth,
Okay,
what do I care whether I'm punting from
I know how you are, Jack.
25 or 40,
I know how you are.
30.
I know how you are. It's going to bug you all day. So this day in sports history, Jack, in 1945, the University of Kentucky Wildcats basketball team holds Arkansas State to a record 6 points. Is that unbelievable?
Now, was that the JV game? Was that
I imagine
varsity game, and they held the team to 6 points?
That's what it said, Jack. And in 1950,
I would hate to be an Arkansas player who got cut from the team.
I mean, that's crazy. And in 1955, Georgia Tech ends Kentucky's 130-game winning streak. So I guess they had a real good team back then, Jack.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's crazy. In 1978, Jimmy Connors beats Bjorn Borg in his first and only in 1978 the Masters Grand Prix tennis title, Jack. Great.
Oh, they used to have those great rivalries, and something about Bjorn Borg. He won Wimbledon 5 years in a row. Wimbledon, of the 4 major tournaments, is considered the most prestigious, but all 4 are prestigious. So he wins Wimbledon 5 years in a row. In one of the finals, he kicks Jimmy Connors' rear end, absolutely destroys him at Wimbledon. Then he plays him in the finals of the U.S. Open a couple of months later, and he loses. Bjorn Borg never won the U.S. Open here in New York. New York was Jimmy Connors' type of place. He loved playing here. He loved the crowd. If any athlete ever fed off a crowd's energy, it was Jimmy Connors.
Agreed. In 1984, the NCAA announces basketball tournament will have 64 teams, and that was the beginning of March Madness, Jack, back in 1984.
March Madness is a tradition with the betting slips.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to know anything about basketball to take an interest in March Madness.
Definitely. In 1993, Michael Jordan reaches the 20,000 points plateau, second fastest to reach, only after the great Wilt Chamberlain, Jack.
Well, I can't add anything about Michael Jordan that hasn't been said before.
Definitely. In 1995, Mike Schmidt, the great third baseman, was elected to the Hall of Fame. In 2013, we're talking about Steve Nash as a coach. He reaches the record of 10,000 assists, Jack. And in birthdays today, 1957, Dwight Clark, who made that famous catch called The Catch, was born. In 1967, Knicks guard William Anderson was born, and Jason Giambi was born in 1971. So a couple locals in there for you, too, that played on local teams. So, Jack, that was quick. The show went by very fast today, and we had a great.
When you're having fun.
Yeah, definitely. So, folks, that's the end of our Weekend Preview Friday show. We'll be back tomorrow with the great Dr. Paul Semendinger, who is a Yankee historian and expert. He has a popular blog called Start Spreading the News. He'll be with us tomorrow. And our fun debate show comes up.
Doc better have some news to give us because it's been basically quiet on the Yankees.
I agree. So he'll be with us tomorrow, folks. Join us tomorrow from 8 to 10 a.m. Great having you aboard. Have a great